student members of the center, and of course, without the appreciative assistance of VC Sir, Professor Dr. Dilip Uki, and our Registrar Sir, Professor Dr. Anil Varyat, I once again wish all of you, each one of you, International Women's Day. And to proceed with the event, I pass on the baton over to Ms. Shreya Mukta, the Joint Coordinator of the Center. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Firstly, wishing a very happy International Women's Day to everyone. The theme for this year International Women's Day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. I would start by stating myself as a proud Indian, where a woman became a president, prime minister, chief ministers from different states have been women, and even heads of political parties and speaker of the houses of parliament have been women. The fields once dominated by men have been taken over by women. Police, army, commercial pilots were all men, but now women are in combat positions in the army, driving Air Force planes. They are going to space and even climbing Everest with artificial limbs. So time is changing, and one of the most courageous thing we can do is to identify ourselves, know who we are, what we believe in, and where we want to go. And now, it's my proud privilege to welcome our esteemed guest of today's session, a social policy researcher, gender and development specialist, women's rights activist, independent journalist, Cynthia Stephen G., whose presence is a source of inspiration for all of us. She is currently working as consultant to government and community relations International Justice Mission, Bangalore. She has completed 2-year term as State Program Director of Mahila Samkhya Karnataka project under Government of India. She has been member in expert committee on redrafting the Panchayati Raj 1993 under Ministry of Panchayati Raj Government of Karnataka. She was media coordinator for 4th UN World Conference. Cynthia Ji has been bestowed with several awards and honors like Social Justice Award from Ambedkar Association of North America, honored for anchoring the Dalits movement for courage and honesty by Savitribai Phule University, conferred with Lifetime Achievement Award 2019 by Teresa Virtual University for Peace and Education. Her biodata is encyclopedia of achievements, which I cannot share completely because of shortage of time. But I must say that it is a proud privilege to have you here, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Vedant to take over the session.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your brief introduction and welcome address. So now we move on to a brief introduction of Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice and PCGT. Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice, CWCRGJ, is a premier research center established in Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, to innovate and discourse of women law, advocate for the rights of children and LGBTQIA+ community in Indian and global perspective. Our center also endeavors to build awareness among youth regarding their rights. Public concern for governance trust came into existence in the year 2002 when good straightforward officers were being humiliated by political leadership. Two of the trustees, Dr. R.K. Anand and Mr. Dara Gandhi, filed a PIL against the proposed transfer of an upright IPS officer. They succeeded in Bombay High Court. This idea of taking up the clutches on the behalf of a good and honest officers and target corruption as the main cause was the born of PCGT. PCGT was founded by Shri J.F. Rebero sir, who is going to address us in today's lecture, former DGP and retired IPS officer, Dr. R.K. Anand, pediatrician, former director of Jaslok Hospital, and Shri late B.G. Deshmukh, retired IAS officer, former Chief Secretary of Maharashtra. PCGT has done various events and is divided into various verticals, that is Youth for Governance, Foxco, Kuch, or etc. With their initiatives and research projects, they have done tremendous work. For instance, casteism in prisons research project, or making people aware on Foxco rights, etc. These were the two centers which have been collaborated for the event, 4-day event, right from 5th of March to 8th of March. We had four tremendous great events where great stalwarts of this entire community addressed and guided us. Today we have with us Ms. Stephen ma'am, who is going to address us on various topics. With us, we have our interviewers also, Tanisha Taneja and Prathamesh Bhatura, who will be introducing and interviewing our chief guest. With this, I hand over the floor to Dr. Anil Varyat sir, who is the Registrar of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, for the presidential address. Sir, was I audible?
Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah. One second. Very good evening to all. Warm greetings on the International Women's Day. Respected chief guest of the evening and other speakers and organizers. In fact, I do not want to take much time. This is the day when we have to pay our respect and appreciation to the women in the society who in fact not only build the homes but also the society. And it is an unfortunate fact that even in this scientific era, the women all over the world have to struggle for their existence and their space in the society. So while celebrating the occasions like International Women's Day, we have to resolve that every one of us shall change our mindsets. Mindset with respect to approach to womanhood, with respect to identity of gender and respect for everyone in the society. So it is a great thing that the Center for Gender Justice and Women Studies in Maharashtra National Law University has organized a webinar series which is highlighting major issues with respect to women's rights and gender justice. So I wish them all success and I appreciate their endeavor. And without taking much time, I would like to say one word, rather to quote Swami Vivekananda, who said, the best thermometer to the progress of a nation is the treatment of its women. So it is up to us to see how we treat our women. They are part of our own life. And India is a land where we have the concept of Ardha Narishwar. So woman is not separate from man, and man and woman shall be complementary to each other. Then only the society will progress. With these words, I wish once again all the success for the center and its all endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your address. Now, I request our interviewers, that is Tanisha Taneja and Prathamesh, to take over this session and walk us through the entire grateful journey of our chief guest.
Thank you, Vedant. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanisha Taneja, and I'm joined by my co-interviewer, Prathamesh. We both are first-year students and members of the Media and Research Wing, respectively, of CWR CGJ. Let's get started with the questions. Um, Ma'am, how was your life as an independent journalist and how did you tackle the socio-economic challenges? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, but you aren't audible.
Can I just get my one moment, please? Just a moment. Let me adjust the sound.
Apologies to the participants, but we can't help that we are in such a online mode that we need to get acquainted with all these online things. So, ma'am, I hope you will be acquainted now very soon with all these new technology in this 21st century.
Yeah, no, I've been using Zoom and everything. This is new to me.
Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes? Okay. Go ahead, shoot.
Ma'am, how was your life as an independent journalist and how did you tackle the socio-economic challenges that you came across?
Um, See, I've been an independent journalist somewhat by default in the sense that once I finished my journalism training, I got into, I did try to work as an independent journalist, but I mean as a regular journalist, but it was an earlier stage. Women journalists were not that I mean, not that popular. Let's put it like that. Yeah, so because I was good at communications, I got into an NGO as a communications officer, and I started to write independently. And because I was in an NGO which dealt with social issues, I wrote a lot on development related issues. So I became an journalist known for my stories on development policy issues and women's issues. So in a way, being independent has given me a lot of flexibility and space to be to choose what I want to write about and where I want to publish my work. So it has been good, and because it was not. I have never been dependent on journalism for my livelihood. It was okay. I always did other things and did my independent journalism parallelly. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Thank you, ma'am. And the next question was, what inspired you to work towards Dalit rights? And is there any specific person who inspired you to write about Dalit rights?
See, I started writing about Dalit issues and all that as a part of my work in women's concerns. One moment, I think they're asking me to turn off my video because net connection is poor. I hope you don't mind. I'll turn it on again in a little bit, okay? So because I think it's important now that people have seen me, it's more important to hear me than for me to be seen. So when there is a little better net connection, I'll come back on video. So in any way I can see you all, so that's fine. The question is that when I used to write on social issues, I used to also write about Dalit issues. Um, and I was also a gender trainer. So I was talking about social inequality and so on. But at that point, I was not aware of my Dalit identity. It was a few years later when I began to engage at senior levels and look for work and so on. That is where somewhere I found things happening which were I could not explain. why I was not, I was shortlisted on 3 or 4 occasions for good positions, but failed to make the grade. So I always was wondering, maybe it's because I was not, maybe the other people, strong candidate was there and so on. But at one point, I heard someone saying to me, looking at my biodata, we don't talk about Dalit issues here. That was the first time I had heard about that in relation to my work. And so then when I connected this and that, then I thought, oh, is it that I am seen as a Dalit? And then I began to make some inquiries and explorations, and I discovered that it was right that some of my, or two of my four grandparents, that is one on either side, were indeed Dalit. I had no clue about it. You see, this is the beauty. The beauty is that the uh, society was able to identify the Dalitness inside me and did not want me to be in positions of power. They selected other people, though they were less qualified. I was perfectly qualified, had experience. And that is when I asked myself, if I, with all my qualifications, being a well known person in my field, I am being excluded because of people see me as a Dalit, how much more people who don't have my advantages will be facing the issue. That is when I gladly accepted. Many people try to hide the fact that they are Dalit. I never did that. I always wanted to accept proudly. The pride is because I knew how hard my grandparents worked, my parents worked, and it was not easy for them, but they struggled because they wanted to give their younger generation a better life. And how hard, how committed, how skilled and talented and hardworking they are. So with pride, I say I claim that legacy, and I said I will be the one who writes about them and speaks about them, and I will gladly accept that identity. But as I said, I am not wholly Dalit. The Dalit label was stuck upon me here and there. I will never call myself Dalit writer, Dalit poet. I never say that. People call me that. I've been an accomplished person without needing any labels. But people do call me, and I don't reject it. In fact, I accept it with joy and pride. So that's what I would like to say.
Ma'am, do you think it keeps getting more difficult when a person from a socially discriminated background moves up the social ladder? And if it happens so, then what's the reason behind it?
Difficult meaning in what sense? Could you say a little more about the question? Is a little. I need a little more clarity on the question.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned while you were telling that it was a little more difficult for you when you started getting promotions in your life. So I just wanted to know why it keeps getting difficult for a person coming from a socially discriminated caste. Why? So what's the reason behind that movement up
I
the
think
ladder?
the people who make it difficult should be answering that question. That it's because of the sense of insecurity they feel, maybe, that talented people are coming up, people who are not from their background are coming up. So that may be it, but I'm not sure. It has to be clarified. But most probably that could be the reason.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
how has the debate over Dalit rights evolved from the time when you started writing books to the current times?
Yes. Good question, and it's a very valid question. See, when as I said, I became aware of my Dalit identity in the middle of my career, and in mid career, where I had already made a mark with myself, by myself, with my writing and speaking skills and knowledge of the policies and so on, and my speaking skills and all that. And but even then, because I had not grown up as a Dalit, you see, I had grown up as a person with some privilege. My parents were hardworking; they kept any knowledge of our caste identity from us. We grew up because my parents were educated. They were in some position. My mother was a teacher in a good school. My father had a job in the mining line and was a manager. So he had some power, some privilege. So I enjoyed that kind of life when I was a child, though we had some poverty issues. But I did not suffer caste discrimination. So I'm not aware of the specific discrimination at that as a child. The way the younger generation in Dalits, for the generations, they grew up with discrimination. So, and at that time, I think I was, when I was studying, hardly any Dalits used to go up, make it to higher education. But as I was in mid-career, it became clear. It became clear that I should work with younger generation people, and they had experience. They had the language to articulate what is going on in their life, and that is the way, and that is why we had to undergo that kind. I mean, that I had to learn that language to speak that language. And that is how we need the society to evolve. And the way they spoke about their deprivations, I could not speak because I had not faced them. So I was learning from them, and the new forms of discrimination that I had not faced, they were facing. They were talking about it. The girls were talking about exclusion. The boys were talking about exclusion. They were talking about uh, being given low marks in college because of their caste identity. So these are the situations they face. So that is how it was.
Yes, ma'am. And as we all know, you also work for women rights, and today is Women's Day. And feminist movement has been a major movement for women's rights. But now
Yes.
we see current online trends. There are people who pass problematic statements in name of feminism. And how do you
Yes.
think these statements affect the feminist movement?
Uh, well, from the beginning, I have, though I do have, I abide by, I mean, I completely subscribe to feminist values of equality and the struggle for against unjust power. The fact is that my own experience in the women's movement, where I was working various women's groups and all that at national level, state level, international level, in India, there was a certain amount of um, opacity, I can say, or invisibility to Dalit concerns. They would talk about poverty. Class was okay to talk about. Caste was not something one talked about easily in as a concern among women's issues. So I felt that that was always an issue. I continue to feel that way, and it's only now that younger women from the Dalit backgrounds are becoming more articulate and able. That many of them have taken their PhDs here and abroad. So now they are beginning to articulate the issues in a very innovative and wonderful way. So we are all very happy with that. But the feminists for a long time resisted it, and it's only now in the past, say, 5 to 6 years, that feminist movements in India have also begun to recognize that they have been sort of not very open to caste concerns, and are now beginning to become more inclusive. But there's a long way to go, though.
Yes, ma'am. And from the time you started, how has feminism and uh, people's sentiments with feminism have evolved? How do you see the evolution? What have the changes been?
In feminism, you mean?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Feminism and feminist
Okay.
movement also.
Okay. I think it would be fair to say that people are a lot more knowledgeable about it nowadays, mainly because of the onset of women's studies becoming a very important discipline in the universities. You know, I think that is an important development, and that is one of the reason why nowadays feminist language, feminist values have come into the system much more.
Ma'am, what do you think are the problems of
Hello?
mainstream feminism in India right now?
Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello?
Ma'am, we can hear you. Ma'am, what do you think are the problems of mainstream feminism in India right now?
I believe that there is some technical problem on with our esteemed chief guest side. So we will pause this for 2 minutes. I request to Kalyani to just kindly get in touch with ma'am and just look into what is the technical problem.
Hello? I'm back now. Hello? Am I
Yes, ma'am.
audible?
You're
Yeah,
audible.
okay.
You're
Yes,
audible.
ma'am.
Yeah, sorry about that. Something seems to have happened. I had to exit and come back. Yeah, I
Ma'am,
finished the answer. You can ask the next question.
ma'am, what do you think are the problems of mainstream feminism in India right now?
I've already mentioned it. The big problem of mainstream feminism is that they have is the history. The history is that they have been less than inclusive, and now they are just beginning to understand that feminism has in some senses become depoliticized. uh, and the depoliticization happened because of the non-inclusive nature of the discipline, I believe. And now that that correction, I think, is coming in, and more feminists, particularly the more influential ones, older ones, have recognized the need for being inclusive. Uh, so the younger generation is growing up with a bit more understanding and a bit more of inclusion. As I said, the younger generation of marginalized sections, Adivasi women, Dalit women are speaking up. Women from the denotified tribes are also coming in and speaking up. So their issues are also coming to the forefront, and that is one of the that is one of the plus points. And so as a result of that, they have begun to take those issues on board. At the other level, there is also much more boldness in talking about sexual harassment, for instance, and so they have to deal with these issues much more. The earlier generations were more into law reform, and now there is more about applications about how day-to-day life people experience, you know, very normalized sexism. There is a reaction against that in the society, and so I think feminism is dealing with that and being a bit fairly effective also. So that's why we have media which earlier the films used to be extremely sexist, and but now a little bit the content is becoming much more inclusive. Sexuality is discussed more openly, and women are not only painted as either in binaries of either the pure Bharatiya Nari versus the slightly westernized you know uh, rebellious woman. So there has been a lot of change in the popular culture as well, and all that has been also influenced by feminist values and the media's expansion, and also the neoliberal values that came in, that explosion in media that happened. All these have contributed to the discourse, the narrative, feminist narrative, also entering into the popular culture. So, though there have been some challenges, the outcome has not been bad at all. It's fairly good.
Ma'am, do you think that the speed of feminism movement in India has been on the right track?
No, as I pointed out earlier, For a long time, I think the feminist movement lost its momentum because of its being depoliticized and being mired in the history of caste obfuscation. And it is only after younger generation started challenging that and began to bring their questions, and that they were faced with the square reality of their becoming almost redundant if they did not address it. I think that has uh, you know only now begun to pick up a little bit. Otherwise, for some years it was moribund almost. So there was only it was not the same hackneyed things of talking about patriarchy alone without addressing Brahminism or Brahminical patriarchy used to happen. Domestic violence was the key issue, whereas the mass of women uh, faced issues like lack of access to gender justice. There used to be rapes, but that was not addressed because the rapes usually happened to women from the marginalized sections. So access to so the fact that I mean, just contrast the societal response to the multiple murders and the double rape. 4 people were killed from one family, and both the women in the family were also gang raped at the same time and lynched. Such an egregious crime in Kailanji. Contrast that with the societal response which was given to them versus what happened when Nirbhaya happened. That will give you an example, a good example of how the discourse on gender justice or how the feminist movement had grown and become more uh, uh, effective. So at least that will also the caste aspect. How much because the victims of the even now the largest numbers of most violent crimes, rapes, gang rapes, etc., tend to be one moment, and that they tend to be from the Dalit community, but uh, the response from society is, or even the police or the courts are not that much. Whereas I would say that women who face that kind of violence from other sections, women from other sections who face that violence, they don't have that. The system does respond to them. So that kind of disparity continues. That has not been addressed, and that is a failure of the women's movement. I think slowly and steadily that is changing, as I've already said.
Yes, ma'am. And as we are talking about Dalit feminism, do you think are there any similarities between Dalit feminism in India and Black feminism in the West? And what do you think they are based on the same view of feminism?
See, overall feminism is about equality. It's about access to justice. It's about not being afraid to speak up for the truth. So that is an overall basic value, feminist value. Um, uh, I'm not very fond of the term Dalit feminism. If those of you who have read my work will be familiar with the fact that I have critiqued that term, and I feel that Dalit womanism is something we need to look at. And so the black feminism that one sees in the West, if contrasted with the white feminism, obviously are very different, because the black women who are feminists and fighting for their rights are fighting for different rights from the kind of rights the white women are fighting. Both of them face domestic violence, for instance, but the kind of domestic violence, the kind of issues that are faced by black women in the house are very different from the in many ways from the what the white women face. How the system responds to the violence faced by black women. Contrast that with the in the West. Contrast that with what the white women, how they respond to white women, issues. So there is a gap there. So I've already pointed out that the similar thing happens in India as well. So there are some similarities, but there are some differences as well. And the main difference is of gender, of caste. So while race is an issue, and therefore the appearance, that kind of thing becomes an issue in the, I mean, a woman, you usually know when a woman is black because of her color, the color of her skin, or the kind of hair she has, or whatever. But in our culture, a Dalit woman looks no different from anybody else. The discrimination comes from other sources. So it's a more systematized discrimination, and so obviously the way you seek to bring in justice is also different. So there are some similarities and some differences. That is why I propose the term womanism, which in some ways is very different, because it's not talking only about the differentiation or the discrimination that happens in society between male and female. Here, the womanist values take on the entire structures of society, such as the family, and looks at justice issues from that aspect. It takes on the concerns of the male as well as the children in the family. So it's quite a different perspective from which one approaches the question. So I'm proposing not a Dalit womanism so much as a marginalized Indian womanism, because marginalization in India is of a nuanced nature. You can be marginalized not only for caste, you can be also marginalized for ethnicity, for region, for language, because your grandparents and parents were from a denotified tribe. So the marginalization is of multifarious kinds. So then that may also, and you may be a backward class woman and face this quite similar domestic violence and poverty issues. But just because you're a Dalit, we do not want to exclude you, because you are also our sister and you also need to have a solution, and we all need to be in solidarity. So the womanism that I talk about is a much more inclusive perspective. And so that is, and caste is one of a very important part of it, but not all of it. So I propose that marginalized Indian womanism should be the perspective from which one understands, analyzes, and addresses the issues of women in India.
Yes, ma'am. And what are your future goals for the Dalit community? And what are the certain policies changes you would suggest to get incorporated in the system?
Access to education, higher education, that is an important part of it. Access to employment and access to justice is very, very important. Education, access to justice, and so that plus the lack of representation in politics. You see, the 73rd and 74th Amendment gives representation to women in local bodies, including, caste. And at that level, the reservation stops. There is reservation on the basis of SC/ST identity in assemblies and parliament, but how many Dalit women are elected on an SC/ST ticket? The reserved constituencies are almost always represented by the men in the community. Plus, those communities are, those tickets are also given to people based on their party affiliation, and also they are voted in with the votes of the non-Dalit population. So the true representation of Dalit women is wanting, is lacking. And so we need to promote the public role and leadership of the women from the marginalized section. We can say at least there is a reservation for Dalit women, in various levels. But what about backward class women? In fact, in many ways, the situation of women from backward classes, OBC and MBC classes, is very, very much similar to the issues of Dalit women in class and caste terms. And so this is important for us to keep in mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all our questions. We gained a lot from your experience. We learned so much today. It was a very different experience to hear your story. And thank you so much, ma'am, for answering our questions patiently. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enriching interview. and your insights on feminism gave us a very broad perspective, and we will surely broaden our horizons of thinking and work. The flow and the entire concepts of intersectionality and the involvement of the role of caste in feminism, all the things which you have answered are very interesting and thought provoking for us, which we are studying right now since we are law students. So we have studied feminism and intersectionality. We even have one book on Dalit literature of Yashika Dutt named Coming Out as a Dalit. Ma'am, you might know her book. So it is in our syllabus. So we have studied these, and we have also referred your literature also during our English literature classes. So it has been a great honor to interact with the person whom we study in our textbooks. So, and we will definitely tell our professors proudly that we had a great interaction with you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
I'm also happy. One of my favorite things is to interact with students. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed so much. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so we have with us joined Mr. Julio Ribeiro, sir.
Yes,
Allow me to introduce Mr. Julio Ribeiro, sir.
sure.
Uh, Mr. Julio Ribeiro, sir, graduated in commerce and law from Mumbai University. He joined Indian Police Services in 1953 and rose to be the Commissioner of Police Mumbai from February 1982 to May 1985. Later, Mr. Ribeiro served in the quick succession as Director General of Police (DGP) of Punjab during the worst wave of terror attacks in Punjab. Central Reserve Police Force and Director General of Police in Gujarat, Special Secretary to the Government of India's Home Ministry, Director General of Police in Punjab, and finally as the advisor to the Governor of Punjab. Besides, other than awards, Mr. Ribeiro sir is the recipient of Padma Bhushan in 1987. Post-retirement, he was appointed as the ambassador to Romania, where he served for 4 years from 1989 to 1993. The then Prime Minister Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee had asked him to be the governor of Jammu Kashmir, but he declined because of his involvement in social work in his native city of Mumbai. Mr. Ribeiro sir is the founding trustee of the great organization PCGT, Public Concern for Governance Trust. At this age of 90 plus, he is enthusiastic and very active and vocal for the rights and for the rights of the people. And he also delivers lectures to us youth students so that we get inspired and make a India that our founding parents had dreamt of. Sir, and I feel proud to introduce Julio Ribeiro, sir, because whom I have interned under. Sir had encouraged me when I told him that I want to enter politics. So Mr. Ribeiro, sir, was the one who said that Vedant, you should go in politics and I will support you. So this is a very personal thing which I shared. But with this, I hand over the floor to Julio Ribeiro, sir. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vedant. And you have mentioned, incidentally, that I was ambassador for 4 years in Romania from 1893 December till 1993 December, exactly 4 years. Now, this is where I first came to know about Women's Day, 8th of March. You know, I lived so many years, for 60 years in India, and I had been in the police from 1953, and I'd not heard about Women's Day. It was obviously not a big thing in India, but in Romania it was huge. And I went to office, and there were 3 Romanian girls who knew English, who were like translators come clerks in our office. And they all came talked out in such good clothes, which they normally didn't wear on a working day. And I asked them, what has happened? All three of you have birthdays today. How is it? It's a coincidence. They said, sir, it is Women's Day. Women's Day is supposed to be something where women there in Romania used to be, and all over East Europe, I think it was so. And that is what they told me. And where the women were all raised on a platform and given some special dinner and festivities. Whereas here, I came back and there was still no talk about Women's Day. And when finally it started being observed, I know that in the Mohalla Committee movement, which is another NGO in which I am involved and which fights communalism, now so important to fight communalism. And now this one that fights corruption, PCGT. And it is the PCGT that got involved in this, not Women's Day as such, but sexual offenses against children. That is how we first started approaching the subject, because some 2 or 3 fathers, mind you, of young boys, mind you, going to school, approached us, and they said that they have reasons to believe that their sons were being sort of molested or while going to school in the school bus, and also at the place of study in the toilet, etc. And we were so shocked, and we said, well, we will take up this cause. And that is how I approached first the police commissioner. Mr. Barve was then, Sanjay Barve, he was the police commissioner, and he said, we have something called the Didi program. And the Didi program is in every police station, one policewoman who is supposed to keep in touch with the Parents Teachers Association, with the principals, and also with the children. And if there is any, they have to educate the parents and teachers, as well as the principals of the school and the children, if possible. Now, children is a very difficult thing to do. Our Sonali Shelar does manage to talk to the children. You have to come down to their level. You shouldn't frighten them, because then they will think that every touch is a bad touch, and that is not so. So we have to be very careful when talking to the children. Well, these are very delicate matters that have to be approached in a proper way. Now, I heard some answers being given by Ms. Stephen.
Yeah.
I would have been present right from the beginning, but unfortunately there was some kind of error in the communication, and I've got on my mobile that thing starts that I'm supposed to be there at 5. So that is, I was in time. I mean, I am a soldier, so I don't go late for anything, and I would have been here in absolute time, but for the fact that there was a slip up. Now, it doesn't matter. These things happen. We have to learn not to make such mistakes. Now, I was just told you how PCGT got involved, and it was very satisfying for us, because Mr. Barve not only held a meeting of all his senior officers where I was present, but later on he organized 3 workshops for the principals of the schools, mainly the municipal schools. And there he could manage to send a circular which made it compulsory for the principals to attend. And our trustee, Rekha Shahani, who was a a principal of a school, private school. She addressed them, and we managed to talk to all the principals. I was not present, but our trustee was present and our staff was present. And I think that is how we got started. Later on, we talked to the parents and teachers. We got involved also with the Didis through the police. And that we are very happy about, because wherever we can support the police or any other government organization to see that their work is facilitated, I think we should be very happy to do it. And that is how PCGT is involved in this work. We also roped in some NGOs who are also involved in this work much before us, but who were not able to get that kind of contact with the police that we had. And we facilitated that. We asked them also to join, because when they are so interested and they have that experience, and they are the ones who could tell us all the work they had done, and they had fixed lots of hot spots, that is, places in the slum areas where the cases were more, where there were more instances of molestation of women and molestation of children coming and going for tuitions. And I wrote to the municipal commissioner. He was good enough to get his staff to light up those places. And that is one thing we achieved due to this contact with the other NGOs. And we are continuing our contact, and we hope to add to this fight against this menace. Now, I heard a question being put to Ms. Stephen about the blacks in the West, in US, where they had been, the whole history of slavery and how they were she has spoken about the Dalits. Well, this was the caste problem, and this is the other problem of economic, exploitation. So the exploited classes, exploited people, whether they are blacks or Dalits, they are the targets, the prey for those who are in power, those who can wield power over them. And that is where we have to be very careful. There are also other people in power who, people at home. And you find so many cases of relatives being involved in such crime. And how do we tackle that? This is certainly something which PCGT will not be able to answer. It has to be done at a different level. People who understand this exploitation, who understand the relationships and how such exploitation can be addressed. But we have been attending to what we can understand, that is children going to school. There are problems there. And even in the buses where they travel, the school buses. So we are trying to see how we can best alleviate or reduce the number of such cases where children are exploited. Very often the children don't know that they are being exploited. And this is the unfortunate part of it. Even young boys, it's not only young girls, but even young boys are molested. So this is unfortunate. It's not only in our country. I presume it must be all over the world, because human nature being what it is, the powerful are always eager to get the better, or to exploit those who are in their clutches. So these are something that we have to understand, we have to explain, we have to first make the parents themselves understand what is possible and what they can do, how they can speak to their own children to avoid such things in their own language, in a language they understand, without alarming them. So these are some of the points that I wanted to talk about, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity. This is the 8th of March, Women's Day. We have been in the Mohalla committees, which fights communalism. We have been observing this day every year. Even today, I'm sure Maria Ishwaran, who guides our staff, she must have arranged something today somewhere. I, being rather going on in age, long in the tooth, they sometimes forget to inform me, and rightly so, because they know that I won't be able to attend. But this method of online is much more convenient for me, and I feel that I can contribute something. As Vedant has said, he can be present. I'm present here online, and it is easier for me to be online than actually present in person. Thank you so much for having me and hearing me out. And sorry again for not being present from the very beginning for Ms. Stevens' talk, which I got the gist of it from the question that were put to her, and which I heard, because as soon as my man who sets this up for me, because I still don't know how to do these things, I've not learned how to handle this new technology. As soon as he came, we put it on, it was nearly 20 to 5. So we did hear something of what we could have heard the whole. Thank you so much for hearing me out.
Thank you very much, sir, for your enlightening words. And we are very much enthusiastic by listening to you. Sir, there is one request from our side. Today, as it is 8th of March, International Women's Day, sir, exactly 1 year ago, that is 8th of March 2021, Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice was inaugurated by Ms. Supriya Sule, Honorable Member of Parliament. And today marks our first anniversary of our center. So today we are going to launch our 4th newsletter. We would be honored if you inaugurate that newsletter by your hands.
Okay, we will do it. But I think you told me it's the 4th one. 4th newsletter, no? Or is it the first?
The 4th newsletter, for the anniversary.
All right. Okay. So what do you want me to say? Inaugurated? Inaugurated.
I would request the presenter to kindly present the video.
Yeah, sure. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Kirti, yes, it's visible. Thank you, Kirti, for presenting it. Thank you very much, sir, for inaugurating the letter. Sir, this newsletter is a special newsletter since it's having the collaboration of PCGT and CWCRGJ. The theme of this newsletter is gender budgeting. So here, our students, our researchers have analyzed the need of budget and the aspects of gender and child rights in this newsletter. We would be most happy if you could read it and give your valuable comments on us, so we could also be incorporating them.
When now? Or you send
No,
it to me
we
in.
will share it with you, and it
Yeah.
would be great if you have a read on the newsletter
Okay.
and give your valuable comments on the same.
All right. I'll do that. Do
Yes.
send it.
Thank you very much, sir. So with this, allow me to give the vote of thanks for the today's session. Uh, we had two speakers for today, Ms. Stephen ma'am and Julio Ribeiro, sir. Both the speaker enlighten us with various new aspects, and it's sure that every participant in this meeting has gained something, and definitely they will try implementing and try researching on it. And as Julio Ribeiro sir always says, that we are the future of India and we are the youth, so we should be more enthusiastic about everything. So sir, definitely we will walk on your path and we will research on everything. Uh, and as you gave a very interesting highlight that you came to know about the Women's Day, importance of Women's Day in Romania when you were the ambassador there. So this was a very interesting thing which I thought. So we'll have a complete research over everything, whatever our both esteemed speakers have said. Thank you very much, sir, for giving your precious time to us and enlightening us with the knowledge of wisdom. With this, we conclude our 4 days webinar series, which was in collaboration with PCGT, Public Concern for Governance Trust, and CWCRGJ, Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice, Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. This collaboration saw a complete 4 days webinar on the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. This theme was adopted from United Nations UN Women 2022 theme. And on this theme, we had 4 esteemed guest lectures with various different field backgrounds and their experiences. We had interview sessions, we had webinar series, and everyone have enjoyed these. If any one of the participants have missed any of the webinar series, they may definitely check our YouTube links, which shall be available on our YouTube channel. And also we shall be mailing everyone. Thank you very much, sir. I think there is one question from someone. Yes.
I had a doubt. So may I proceed with it right now?
Yeah. Is it a question?
Yeah.
Proceed.
So I would like to ask Stephen ma'am. My doubt is around women gladly accepting their identity as a Dalit. Like Dalit in classical Sanskrit is broken or scattered. So accepting the fact that your roots are placed in a community which was referred to as Dalan or broken, I'd like to ask ma'am, don't you think this would further solidify the stereotypical Dalit image?
Participant, I'm sorry to inform you, but Miss Stephen ma'am has just left because of her some other commitments.
Okay, there's no issue. Should I ask a doubt to Julio, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
would not
sir,
be able to I don't think I'm competent to answer that because
no,
I didn't
of
even
course you
know
are.
that. I did not even know that I have been enlightened by you that Dalit what it means.
No,
The
sir, no,
actual
sir. I've got a different doubt, which is
but
towards
I
your
know,
line of work. I've got a
but I
different
know.
doubt to you. I'm so sorry for cutting you off. May I proceed, sir?
What is it? I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
not able to.
ask you the doubt now. So you stated a difference between a good touch and a touch. So I feel like this is a very, very sensitive topic. So can you please elaborate on how do we introduce the concept of sexual harassment to children, which a lot of parents, even parents, are not comfortable discussing with their kids?
That is why Sonali has to go and meet the parents first, talk to them first, and tell them that this is not something that they should try to avoid or put under the carpet. It is something that really happens to them, and that we should really try and talk to our children in a most delicate manner. Don't talk to them directly and say that these things happen and all that. You might frighten them, and that is not what you are supposed to do. You have to you have to do it in a most graded fashion, and this requires some experience. People with child psychology as their subject, and people who would be able to put across their thing without alarming the children. And that is possible, but requires an expertise which I do not have, and which you will not have, but which parents can adopt or can inculcate in themselves if they themselves feel that their children might be victims of this. And when somebody feels that their children are going to be victims, they immediately get involved. And that is how we expect them to tackle this problem.
So I've got a
Yes.
follow-up, if you may allow. So do you think that the distinction between a touch and a bad touch should be included in our school curriculum? And at what age do you think the introduction should be made?
You can't do that. You can't put it in the curriculum, certainly. You have to be very careful how you do it. You'll alarm all the children in this manner. We don't want to alarm any children, but it does happen. And if it happens, you will see some kind of behavior in the child itself, which is not normal. And then only you can try and get it out of him and find out who is the culprit. That is how it is done. This is a very delicate topic, and expertise is required. And you and I cannot really solve these problems sitting here and discussing it in a seminar. Yeah.
So, but what we're essentially doing is that after a child has been, sexually harassed, after that we are trying to explain to him the difference between a touch, like you said, those boys were being sexually harassed, and then after that steps were taken. So, don't you think yes, sir, please go ahead.
No, I think I'm sorry that you have got alarmed yourself, because I didn't intend to alarm you. But when you become a parent, you will you will understand the importance of this subject. It's when it descends on you, and what happens. I've seen many parents who just don't bother, who think, especially among the more affluent classes, they just bother about themselves, and they leave their children to their own devices, and that is where the problem arises. It is first you have to talk to the parents and make them aware. It's only when they themselves get worried that they come round and keep a watch on it. I do agree that sometimes it is possible. You can't really keep telling every child, look, somebody might do this to you or do that to you. Please don't do that, because that might really make it worse. We don't want to make anything worse. So probably it is true what you are saying, that after it happens. But even after it happened, the first time will not be so bad, but the person would continue doing it unless you intervene. And that is the intervention has to come. And that can be done only when there is some sort of realization about what is happening.
Yes, I
Thank you
completely
very much,
agree.
sir.
Sorry, may I go ahead?
Vedant, we are running out of time. So
Okay, completely fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presence. So with this, we come to an unfortunate end of the entire webinar series. I thank PCGT for collaborating with us for this particular event. And we intend to do further collaborations with this esteemed great organization in other areas also. Uh, we are thankful to all the trustees to allowing us to do this event. We are thankful to coordinator ma'am, Shraddha Gaikwad ma'am, joint coordinator ma'am, Shriya Mukta ma'am, our honorable vice chancellor sir, and registrar sir, and everyone to encourage us in conducting this entire 4 days webinar series by which at least a few people have been able to acknowledge themselves about the rights and the perspectives which have been discussed by all the great stalwart speakers in the webinar. And all the YouTube links of these recorded webinars are available. Everyone can check them out. Thank you very much, sir.
You have unmuted your call.
Hello.
Ethan, Olin Advocate Muhammad Atab AFK.
Hello.